Hello and welcome to Bread and Thread, a podcast about food and domestic history. I'm Liz.
And I'm Hazel. We are two friends who studied archaeology together and love history and also making things. And we like to start by talking about that. So, what have you been making recently?
I haven't done anything that spectacular, I'll be honest, just like continuing existing projects. But I did learn that if you make brownies in a bundt tin, you get because I really like corner pieces. So you get like a wedge that's like a corner piece, but then as you go through it, it gets really, really gooey. So it's the best of both worlds,
Oh, wow.
honestly.
It's like all corner.
It's all corner, but it's still gooey, and sometimes corner pieces are dry. It's just bundt brownies. If you're listening to this, go and make brownies in a bundt tin right now and thank me later.
Does it come out just like one giant Uber brownie?
Oh yeah, I do cut it up. Because I mean, to be fair, if you make it as a tray bake, it also comes out as one giant Uber brownie that you then have to cut up.
Yeah, but what if you just take a bite?
What is a bundt cake if not a giant donut?
This changes everything.
Have I blown your mind?
Yeah, that was real-time sound of my mind being blown by the concept of Uber brownie.
I think I do now at some point have to make like an actual donut batter and bake it in my bundt tin.
Just like, how many things can you bake in a bundt tin?
I mean, I've seen bread being done in it, and a donut's like between bread and a cake. I'm gonna have to do this.
Solid. Definitely.
So what have you been up to?
Okay, so remember last time I bragged about my passion fruit chocolate tart? So I actually saved the passion fruit skins, and I tried dyeing with them because I kind of got interested in natural dyeing. I mean, I guess I've been interested for a while, but I couldn't really be bothered.
Fair.
So it just tends to be like the interest will build up until I have an impetus to actually do the thing. So I guess because I very rarely have passion fruit because I live in England, I was like, oh, I should like take the opportunity and see what color this makes. And well, what I got was like beige. um,
Slightly disappointing.
Yeah, it wasn't that inspiring, but it definitely worked. Like the wool went a different color. So that's kind of encouraging. I feel like maybe I left them in the fridge for a week. Maybe that was bad, but I now have a book on natural dyeing, so watch this space, I guess. I'm definitely going to try some more.
That is very exciting.
Yeah. I really want to try dyeing with woad because it doesn't turn blue until you lift it out of the dye pot and expose it to oxygen. And then it just magically goes blue. It's amazing.
Yes, I remember a while ago you did say you'd planted some woad to try and dye with.
I did, and then the comfrey that was like all up in the soil just kind of took it over. There is woad there, but it's like there's like Godzilla comfrey all around it. And there's only like 3 or 4 woad plants, so I'm hoping they'll spread a bit. And also, my motivation for gardening is very fleeting, so I basically planted it and then was like, okay, done. And then kind of didn't do anything else.
In your defense, it's really cold right now.
Yeah. But it is there, so hopefully it'll still be there and I can collect more seeds from it and I think maybe I shouldn't have I should have planted it in pots first and then transferred it, because my problem was I like dug over the ground, um, and then which took ages, and then just planted it. But the problem was there were lots of seeds for various things already in that soil, and so when things started coming up, I couldn't tell what was woad and what wasn't. That was
Mm.
an difficult sentence. um,
That is a true tongue. I can't talk now. I was trying to say that's a true tongue twister, which is apparently also one.
yeah, so I didn't know what to weed out and what to leave. So now I just have a lot of like plants I don't want and some weed. So I think next time I would like grow them a bit first and then put them in, so I know what to take out. But that's ongoing. One day.
So speaking of segues, I tried to and I couldn't get there, but I'm going to talk about tea.
Oh, excellent. Okay, I actually didn't know what we were talking about today. So any specific kind of tea, or just like the realm of tea?
Well, I'm going to focus on your classic Camellia Sinensis, which is the
Is that
black tea, green
okay?
tea, oolong, blue tea. You know your classic teas.
Okay, so they're like all the same species?
They all come from the same plant.
Really?
Technically, if it isn't Camellia sinensis, it's a tisane, and that includes redbush
Ah,
tea because that's a different plant.
really?
Mm.
No way. I'm drinking rubbish tea right now. I always thought it was the same plant, just like a red version.
No, redbush tea, which I'm never sure how to say, but I think it's rooibos.
Something like that.
Um, it comes from a South African plant called
Hmm.
Aspelanthus linearis.
Okay.
But yeah, the
Um,
Camellia sinensis, you might be able to guess from the name, comes from China, or at least that sort of area that's
mhm.
like southwest China, Tibet, northern India kind of zone.
The T zone.
Yeah, but British people found it in China. Um, we named it, so it's called sinensis.
Oh.
Interesting
We
side
should.
note, actually. Um, so you know how words for tea tend to come under, there's like words that sound like tea and words that sound like chai.
Hmm.
Um, I found this great map which basically illustrates that if the tea spread through land-based trade routes, it tends to be a cha or a chi or a chai,
Hmm.
and then if it was through sort of shipping lanes, it tends to be a tea
Ah,
of by sea.
interesting. Why does it become different at sea?
It's different, sort of, because obviously China is very big,
Hmm.
um, and contains different languages that aren't just Mandarin Chinese. Um, in one of these languages, more inland, it was Cha, and in a coastal one, it was Te. So it's purely just getting it from slightly different Chinese people.
Oh wow, that's so cool. I wonder if it could explain my dad, who like talks about tea all the time, but then specifically whenever is making tea after like a really long task describes it as a cup of cha.
So yeah,
Okay.
it's common for sort of older British people to call it cha. Probably because of British colonialism in India. Um,
Okay.
it's sort of evolving from chai and the middle class calling it that because they got it from India. Therefore, it was chai or che or something in that zone. Not very good at pronouncing
Ah.
Hindi. Um, versus calling it tea, getting it through sort of the East Indies from Java, that kind of region.
Okay.
I will
Oh, that
post
makes
the map
sense.
because it's just a very good demonstration of a thing I'm not very good at explaining verbally, apparently.
I mean, that's what maps are for.
Yeah. Um, so do you know either of the sort of supposed origins of tea? There's a Chinese one and there's an Indian one. Do you know either of
Okay,
them?
I think I know the Chinese one.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the story is like there was a princess who was doing something out in the gardens. I can't remember what that involved, like hot water, and a leaf from the tree above her fell into her cup. And it was delicious or something like that.
That's basically it, yeah. It's sometimes it's a princess and sometimes it's an emperor, but drinking just hot water was a thing in ancient China. It's supposed to be healthier than drinking cold water.
Okay.
Um, the Indian one is a little bit grosser.
Okay.
Um, the story goes that Prince Bodhidharma, the founder of Zen Buddhism,
Hmm.
um, vowed to meditate for 9 years without sleep. Towards the end of the 9 years, he fell asleep,
Oh
and
no.
when he woke up, he was so angry that he tore off his eyelids and threw them to the ground, and a tea plant sprung up. It's like
Oh my god.
tea leaves do look a little bit like eyelids, I guess, but that is an absolutely horrific story.
That is entirely horrific. I kind of love it.
Like I do like it more than the Chinese one just because it's so visceral.
I know. I guess the Chinese one like makes sense. You know, you're like, oh yeah, I can see how that would happen. Um, that's just like, hmm, that's a hot take.
Yeah. It is interesting that it's Zen Buddhists though.
Hmm.
Supposedly it's Zen Buddhists that took tea to Japan.
Okay.
So there's a Chinese book called the Cha Ching, which is sort of about yeah, it's basically considered the definitive text on tea for the time. Its author was known as the Tea Saint,
That is
and
amazing.
um, yeah, based on this book, the tea ceremony was developed, which was then exported to Japan by Buddhist missionaries.
Wow. So there's like a lot of I can't think of the word, but you know when something originates in one culture and then goes to another and then kind of ends up getting transferred back to the first one again, but a bit different, and then so on and so forth.
Yeah, there's a lot of cross pollination, I guess.
That's it.
Um, interestingly, apparently the Buddhists were using tea to stay awake during meditation. 'Cause I
Mhm.
guess it's if you don't have coffee, it's
I guess
the most caffeinated
yeah,
thing.
it's caffeinated, yeah.
But I just love that because that kind of ties back to the story. It's like he couldn't stay awake, and then he
It
made a thing that
does.
helps you stay awake.
Out of his own eyelids.
Yeah, it's best not to think too much about that part. Um, so the first European to write about tea was, also a missionary, um, a Portuguese one who visited China. Um, the writing about tea at this period, sort of the 1500s, is a bit odd, though. Like, there's all these rumors about this mysterious Eastern drink, um, or possibly, like, salting the leaves and eating them after boiling them.
Hmm, that doesn't sound
It
good.
really doesn't. Just gonna eat some salty leaves.
Oh,
Like,
no.
I don't like salad, but that sounds worse than salad.
That's, like, on the same level as, British people trying to eat potatoes raw, right, when they first came
Yeah,
in.
and, like, the leaves are so small as well, it would be hard you'd have to eat it with a spoon, which would just be horrendous.
Oh, no. Salty spoon leaves.
I don't think it would have got quite as popular.
Probably not, no. It's funny to think about, though, because it's something that is just so, like, commonplace to us today. Um, and then yeah, it's funny to think that, our ancestors in the West, like, just had absolutely no clue about what to do with
Yeah.
this exotic Eastern beverage.
So, yeah, it sort of makes its way to the West through Dutch traders. You've probably heard of
Mhm.
the East India Company, there was a Dutch one as well.
Yeah. Yeah, didn't they have a lot to do with the spice, trade as well?
Yeah, we will absolutely do an episode on the Spice Wars because that was a whole thing.
Mm. 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 There's a lot to unpack there, right?
Yeah, but yeah, drinking tea as sort of an elite activity spread very quickly from
Mhm.
Holland. Um, yeah, we've got for popularity in Britain though, we've got Catherine of Braganza. You may remember her from Forks. Um, yeah, she was Portuguese. Charles II, of England, who she married, had grown up in Holland, so they introduced tea to Britain as well.
Basically a 17th century influencer.
Absolutely. I mean, at this point, the royal family basically are influencers.
Mhm.
Like what they do, everyone else does. There's the story about wigs becoming popular because the King of England was bald and started wearing a wig, so everyone else started wearing wigs.
Oh my
I
gosh.
can't remember which king it is, and it's also probably exaggerated, but it's a heck of a story.
Mm.
And honestly, if there's one thing we've learned on this podcast, it's if it's a good story, then it's gonna spread.
Absolutely. And, you know, probably should.
Um, but yes, you've got the Dutch East India Company, and then the British one gets set up afterwards, but very quickly establishes a tea factory in Macau, which is
Mhm.
yeah, on the coast of China.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just keeps spreading through a combination of very dodgy trade because colonialism and also just regular colonialism. Um, but there's a beautiful story. This one probably is true about the British East India Company um, basically trying to find out where tea actually comes from so they can end this Chinese monopoly on it. So the British Tea Committee in the mid 1800s sends Robert Fortune undercover to China
Oh wow.
to find out how tea is farmed and processed.
Oh, I I think I've heard, I don't know if it's this particular one, but essentially somebody smuggling tea out
Oh
of
yeah, that's the
China.
guy.
That this is
This
the
is the
guy, okay.
guy.
That guy.
Um, he also brought back Chinese tea experts.
Okay.
Um, and then you have in the 1820s, um, large quote marks here, discovering um, tea bushes just growing wild in Assam and Darjeeling woods, which may ring a bell if you like tea,
Mhm.
and combining that with this knowledge to set up tea estates in India, and Indian tea became a lot more popular than Chinese tea in Britain.
Okay. So tea was already, like the tea plant was already in India, but people just weren't drinking it? Or
Um, the problem is most of the accounts we have are by employees of the British East India Company.
okay.
So, like I said, the word discover is
Hmm.
certainly a choice that was made by some British people doing capitalist colonialism.
I feel like that can apply to a lot of the subjects on this podcast.
Yeah. But yeah, they found the tea and then they went, I know, let's grow some tea. And then they
Oh,
all got rich
congratulations,
on
lads.
tea.
What a surprise.
So yeah, that's the basics of how tea got to Britain. But I think I do have to mention yeah, I've been learning about tea grading and
Okay.
it's a lot.
So I'm assuming that's when you like separate the teas into like this is the best tea and this is the other tea.
Yeah, so you have OP, which is I believe it stands for Orange Pico, which is basically this is a whole decent leaf. That's what you tend to get in loose leaf versus
Hmm.
tea bags, which tends to be the lower quality stuff. And then it can be described as things like flowery, golden flowery, tippy golden, which are all those are sort of increasing quality. Tippy golden is just the very tip of the leaf.
Oh, that's kind of charming.
It's tip and top.
It sounds like the name of a Jeeves and Wooster character.
It really does.
Oh, it's young Tippy Golden. Oh gosh, I thought I gave her the slip at Aunt Agatha's ball last year.
I tried to foist her off on Gussie Finknottle, but she doesn't like mute. Um, but yeah, so you can combine all of these different letters to make the different grades. So the very,
Mhm.
very best tea is FTGFOP, um, which, apparently there's, like, an inside joke among tea aficionados that it stands for "far too good for ordinary people."
That's
You
adorable.
can basically stick a B in front of any of those to just say, "Well, it's like that, but worse," because the leaves are broken.
Okay. So where do you get this magical perfect tea? Like, is it
I
available
mean,
to
I I haven't
be
been able to find it on any of the places that I buy tea from, but I am a mere pleb. You probably get it from Harrods or something.
Yeah, I bet.
If anyone has any tips on the far too good for ordinary people tea, I wanna try it.
Let us
I've
know.
been learning a lot about tea and which teas I like and the subtle differences between different kinds. I wanna try
Oh,
the
that's
very, very good tea.
is that your life's
It
quest?
is. Um, so yeah, you probably know about the, tea, especially green tea is seen as a very healthy thing.
Mhm.
Um, probably especially things like antioxidants.
That does get thrown around a lot. I like you see it on green tea boxes all the time, like detox or antioxidant, that kind of
Mm.
thing.
Um,
So is that true?
green tea does have more antioxidants and all of the good things. Um, so basically, the color the color tea, sort of green, white, blue, black, describes how oxidized it
Mhm.
is.
Okay.
So green tea is hasn't been oxidized at all, contains all of the good stuff.
Oh, okay, so black tea is like it's been dried or
Well, it's oxidized rather than dried, so it's because all tea leaves the certainly that we would buy in a shop are dried.
oh yeah, okay, I see.
Um, but yeah, it's I'm gonna double check, but I think I know this, but I'm gonna double check. Yeah, the leaves are exposed to hot air and they oxidize in a similar way to like if you burn something, it oxidizes, just less so
Okay.
because it's hot air.
Mhm.
So green is pretty much not oxidized, and then white is a little bit, and then blue, which is your oolongs, are described as semi-oxidized, and then black is just like it looks like that because the oxygen has done its thing.
Okay.
And I don't really understand how antioxidants work, but if you oxidize the thing, it has fewer antioxidants, which makes sense, like, in my brain because of the words, but I don't really understand it. I'm not a chemist.
But I guess, yeah, in word sense,
It
it
makes word
it makes
sense.
sense.
But obviously now we also have a lot of and I mean then as well, to be fair, as a kind of folk medicine, we have tisanes, like herbal teas.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think the reason that they tend to be referred to as teas rather than tisanes is, 1, because people know what tea is, but also tisane
Mhm.
tends to be a much more, like, medical herbalist kind of way of referring to it. Like, if I offer you a nettle
Yeah.
tea versus if I offer you a nettle tisane, it's the same stuff, but one of them sounds like I'm trying to cure you of something, and the other one sounds like a nice drink.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, we kind of refer to anything that is made by putting a plant in hot water as a tea, right? Like I only learned what a tisane is like a couple years ago.
One thing that I want to mention before I wrap up, because I realize I've talked a lot. So tea is made generally from the leaves of the Camellia Sinensis, but there's also kukicha or bocha tea,
Okay.
which is made of the stems and twigs of the tea bush.
Wow. Okay. What's that like?
I currently have some because I subscribe to a tea subscription box. And they sent me some kukicha in my box for February. And it's
Wow.
it's almost like lemonade. Honestly, like there's
What?
there was kind of an astringency to it and then like a sweetness. Like it's still
Okay.
a green tea, but
Huh.
it's complex.
Tea. It's complex. Huh. That's kind of cool though. It's like it's not just the leaves.
Yeah, you can drink the whole plant.
Entirely drinkable.
I mean, I haven't come across the roots being used, but I bet you can use the roots.
Wow. Tea is amazing.
So, before Hazel goes into the local larder, I just want to say that we have a Patreon. It's just bread and thread. There is a Patreon exclusive server where we talk a lot about crafts and food and things. There's monthly recipes, and if you subscribe at $10, pounds, etc., we will make a bonus episode just for you.
I'm Mod Paper from Probably Bad RPG Ideas, and we have a podcast. If you'd like to hear RPG advice on how to use assorted incredibly bad ideas as actual ideas in an actual game, then listen to the Probably Bad podcast. Available on pretty much every podcatcher. And remember to have a probably bad day.
Cool. So actually, my local larder today is accidentally relevant because it's a Portuguese food. So this is going to be a fairly short one because, like, almost all of the information I could find on this is in Portuguese, and I don't speak Portuguese. So that it's going to be pretty light on the history side. But I just want you to know that this exists.
Is that a general you, or is it me specifically?
You specifically, and also everybody else. I mean, I assume if you're Portuguese, you know about it, but it's not something I've ever heard of before, and I feel like it probably wouldn't be very well known outside Portugal. So this, I kind of found out about this from, I was thinking about like fish and chips, and I was like, well, I wonder if like there tends to be a version of fish and chips for most places around Europe that are coastal.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I wonder how like different fish and chips is around different places. And so this is, and of course it has to be properly regional. You know, I can't just be like, well, this is from this country because it's local larder, so it has to be an actual regional food within that country. So this is from the Portuguese city of Setúbal, which is on the coast. It's south of Lisbon, about 45 minutes south of Lisbon, apparently. But it's not as well known as other places in Portugal because there's not as much money in there as there is in Lisbon at the moment. So it's not as popular like touristically, but it's had a very strong fishing industry, basically forever, and apparently was a center of fish canning in the 19th century, which is interesting.
That's neat.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. And so they have a very famous regional food that is very associated with the city. It's called Choco Frito, which sounds like it would have chocolate in it, right? To our English-speaking
Yeah, like my
ears.
immediate thought is fried chocolate.
Yeah, it's cuttlefish.
Okay.
It is fried cuttlefish. It's apparently they like boil the cuttlefish with some herbs and garlic, marinate it in white wine and vinegar, and then like cover it in corn flour and fry it.
I mean, that does sound delicious.
Which sounds pretty good, yeah. I mean, I've never had cuttlefish, but I have had squid, and it's nice.
Yeah, you would assume it'd be
So-
similar to squid.
Yeah, I feel like it would be tasty. And normally it's served with a lot of fries, like thin crispy chips or rice or something. Or like you can have it as like a side just on its own. So yeah, that is what Choco Frito is. And I just love the concept of like this famous cuttlefish thing, because I've never really heard of cuttlefish being eaten before. But I mean, now that I think about it, it makes sense.
Yeah, I guess it's just in Britain your main exposure to the concept of cuttlefish is, or it's that weird hard thing you put in bird cages.
Yeah, and sometimes you find it on the beach and you're like, what is that? And it's cuttlefish. So, yeah, that's what Choco Frito is. And in Setúbal, there is a restaurant that serves it. There is also a small museum to the history of cuttlefish.
Okay, you. The cuttlefish was interesting, and then you said museum.
There is a cuttlefish museum in
Now
Portugal.
I have to go.
Yeah, I really want to go. This is the problem with researching.
This
regional
happens
foods in
every
a
time.
pandemic. Like, yeah, the road trip is expanding. So yeah, there's a lot of places in the city that you can get this apparently because it is so like famous. In fact, apparently it's so popular that it's kind of a local icon now, and there are like statues of it in the city.
Like statues of
I don't know.
cuttlefish
I
or
haven't
of
been
the
able.
dish.
I don't know. I haven't been able to find any pictures of the statues.
Is-
I just know that there are Choco Frito statues.
That is wild, because a statue of a cuttlefish I can kind of get, but of a specific dish is mind-boggling.
I think it's probably cuttlefish related. Probably. I don't know. Please, if you're listening to this and you are Portuguese and you know what the Choco Frito statues look like, send us a picture.
Yeah, we need this.
I need to see. Yeah. So and also kind of linking into the when I talked about jellied eels, I mentioned that most of the eels used for this iconic British London East End dish come from Denmark or like Holland or like somewhere that isn't Britain. So they do still fish cuttlefish in Setúbal, but they're kind of small now. They don't really get the big ones anymore. So the big ones that they use for Choco Frito actually come from India.
Well, that's kind of a shame, but also another food connection.
Yeah. But yeah, food connections. And I think that's kind of a theme in a lot of places that have this really, popular historic food is like overfishing or over like production of this thing means that it's not able to completely make this food itself anymore.
It's definitely something to think on.
Yeah. There's a point in there somewhere.
We haven't found it, but it's in there.
It's just food for thought, as you might say. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about Choco Frito because I now know that it exists and could not keep that information to myself.
I mean, I'm glad you didn't. So yeah, if you have an episode suggestion or want to say hi or want to send us pictures of statues of fried cuttlefish, you can email breadandthreadpodcast@gmail.com.
We're also on Twitter @breadandthread, so check out for pictures and links and things and updates on when the episodes come out.
And also me posting hints as to what the next episode will be because I like doing that, I guess.
Oh yeah, that's a fun game. And we will see you next time.